Greetings, my beloved brothers and sisters of the human family. Peace and many blessings be unto you. I hope that each and every one of you and your families have been doing very, very well. I hope that you are healthy and prosperous. I promised in the previous video that I made that I was going to talk about the legalities of utilization of the martial arts in the real world from a combative perspective in the event that you have to defend yourself, your loved ones, or innocent citizens in the environment that you may be in. My name is AD, and I'm the chief instructor of AD Martial Arts Concepts. I have been studying martial arts for the past 46 years. I wear my traditional gi today to celebrate my humble beginnings in the martial arts. The first style that I learned was Tai Chi Chuan, the Chin Meng Ching 37 form short version of Tai Chi Chuan. My instructor was Bari Salim. I was 14 years old when I first began to study the martial arts sciences. Eventually, after 4 years of training, 18 years of age, I went to college. And from there, I met students from overseas and students from domestic America that studied many other traditions of the martial arts sciences. Thus, that began to expand my horizons. We created a martial arts study group at the college that I attended, and we sparred. There were students who came from Shotokan Karate. There were students who came from the wrestling discipline. Some of them had gotten 4-year scholarships. That's how good they were at the university in which I attended. Some had boxing backgrounds, other disciplines of Kung Fu background, karate, Thai boxing, multiple disciplines. And we formed a group and we sparred. And it was not competitive. It was an exchange of information to see what worked and what did not work. And what we did was we integrated into our own systems, which we called our core art. Our core arts were the foundations in which we first began to learn whatever our martial arts discipline was. And we recognized the weaknesses, and this was back in 1981 when I first went to college. And I first began studying the martial arts sciences, and Tai Chi is my core art back in 1976 when I was 14 years of age. I'm 59, and I will turn 60 on September 13th. I was born September 13th, 1962. So September 13th of this month will be my 60th birthday. And as I said, I've been studying for the past 46 years. And on my martial arts journey, I have had the privilege of meeting many outstanding individuals who are not known to the martial arts world at large. I'm not known to the martial arts world at large. Basically, The reason that I wanted to learn the martial arts sciences is to be able to protect myself, my family, and loved ones. I never had any interest in learning sports oriented martial arts, even though having a sports oriented foundation in the martial arts will definitely give you the advantage. So, Tai Chi was my core art, and there were other students that were from many other disciplines, as I said earlier. And what we did is we sparred, and we did what's called a process of integration. Whatever weaknesses that we discovered in our core arts, we took from the arts of those that we sparred with. And basically, it was a sharing, and it was extremely beautiful and highly respectful experience. There was no type of competition amongst us that said my art was better than yours, and there were not fights. It was all dealt with the foundation of traditional martial arts, which is a tremendous amount of humility and a tremendous amount of respect and sharing. And so it was a very, very beautiful experience. And for whatever reason, they selected me as the head of our martial arts group. And that was an honor in itself as well. One of the things I've liked about Tai Chi Chuan is the health aspects of it. I ventured out and I needed to add other disciplines to Tai Chi Chuan because I didn't know that it was able to be utilized combatively to the extent, but the deeper that I got into it, I learned that it's not so much about the art, it's about the utilization of the art, and that is any art. All arts have their advantages and disadvantages. It's more or less the practitioner of the art that makes the difference. So anyway, I wanted to talk some today about the legalities of the martial arts. That is some of my background in martial arts. I wanted to give somewhat of a foundation in terms of where I came from. Again, I want to reiterate that I'm not a sports martial arts competitor. I've never had interest in that. Basically, I've only had interest in the survival aspects and combative aspects of any martial arts discipline that I've studied. And over the years, I've integrated many into my core art, which is Tai Chi Chuan, and it has served me well. And so I wanted to give that foundation and background before I get into the legalities. I've had the opportunity to work in law enforcement capacity for the past 33 years. And I also work as a contractor for the United States military. And I have trained many people over the years, but there has not been publicity. I train strictly survival. If you look at some of my videos, it's strictly the survival that I teach. I do not teach sports-oriented martial arts. Now is this channel about sports-oriented martial arts. It's not about proper form. It's not about tradition. What I have did is I have maintained the concepts, and concepts can be adapted and concepts can be evolved. If you make your system organic, that means that it can be an evolution in your system. But if it's tradition, anything that doesn't grow, it dies. So this channel is about organic. I celebrate the concepts of all the various systems that I have studied. And as I make my videos, you will see more and more uh, concepts that I utilize, especially on the training of Bob that's behind me, my training apparatus. I can use my full power on Bob, but I cannot use my full power on my students, clients, and seminars when I give those. I have refined what I have been teaching over the years, and uh, it was basically kept within the law enforcement and military circles, the areas in which I trained, because I trained to end it in seconds. You don't have time to fight. You don't want to know how good that a person is. If you have to use combatives' purpose is not to fight, it's to end the altercation as soon as possible. Now, size does matter, which I've talked about in some of my previous videos. Size does matter, and I teach how to even the grounds when someone is much larger than you are. Especially, I'm passionate when it comes to smaller men and women. Size does matter, but I can teach you how to hit the most vulnerable points in that person's body to neutralize and disable a person in seconds. Have I had to use my martial arts sciences in real life? Yes, I have. And yet I'm almost 60 years old. That means that in the capacities in which I had to use it, it must have been effective, then I wouldn't be here. Countdown time for 60 years old. So I wanted to speak briefly on the legalities now that we've gotten that out of the way. You have what's called Miranda if you ever have to use your martial arts in a real combative situation. You have what's called Miranda in the event that the police show up. Now, let me quote Miranda to you. Miranda says, you have a right to remain silent. Anything that you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed for you. Now let us break that down. You have a right to remain silent. And you see, that is the mistake that most citizens make when they get in trouble and the police show up. If that officer has quoted Miranda to you and placed you under arrest, remember, you have a right to remain silent. Anything that you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney, and if you cannot afford one, one will be appointed for you. Now, the mythology is that if you have an attorney, that you have to pay a retainer. No, you do not have to pay a retainer. But what I suggest is, especially those that study combatives and hand-to-hand tactics and martial arts, in the event that you have to use them to defend yourself, family, loved ones, or innocent citizens, I highly recommend that you meet a criminal defense attorney. Meet a criminal defense attorney. And when the police show up, if you've did some damage to that person or permanently neutralized that person, you will be incarcerated until all the facts are sorted out. The only thing that you are required to give once Miranda has been quoted to you is proof of who you are. Give them your ID or driver's license or passport, and that will prove the validity of your identity. and then you tell that police officer that you will adhere to your Miranda rights and that you will contact your criminal defense attorney. And the reason that this is so important is because the law is not our specialty. The law is a criminal defense attorney's specialty. If you try to prove yourself wrong by talking too much, you're going to end up saying things that's going to incriminate you. There are people that's doing life in prison because he or she said the wrong things, when initially he or she was not at fault. The other person was the aggressor. The other person tried to rob them, kill them, or harm their family, or injure them. And instead of adhering to the Miranda rights once he or she was arrested, it says that anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Remember those words. No matter what you say, will be used against you in a court of law. Now, a criminal defense attorney knows your rights. And that is who you share the incident with, is your criminal defense attorney. Now, you do not have to have a lawyer on retainer. That is one of the biggest myths that the population believes. You only pay for services when they are rendered. You pay for services, legal services, when they are rendered. And once that criminal defense attorney begins to represent you, that is when you will pay for the criminal defense attorney's services. Again, a criminal defense attorney is an expert in criminal laws and knows your rights better than you do, because this is what they have been trained in, this is their profession, and this is what they do on a daily basis. So many people would not be in prison doing life today if they had just remained silent and adhered to their Miranda rights. So, give proof of your identity and remain silent. Share the incident with your criminal defense attorney and let the criminal defense attorney handle your case. Another thing, make sure that you have a savings account for bond money in the event, or a money market. Invest in your self-defense. See, brothers and sisters, self-defense is not all about throwing hands. Anytime that hands are thrown, someone could end up being killed, even though it may not have been your intent to do so. A person could fall and strike the back of his or her head, and that person could have been the aggressor to you, and you just defended yourself. And the second thing I want to say is, never assume an aggressive fighting stance. That's something like this. That means that you had the intent with this stance to do harm to another person's body. You have the intent. And people are video recording now. Every incident that takes place, people are video recording and taking photos. Remember that. So this is the stance that you want to get in. You want to get in a non-aggressive stance, and you want to articulate yourself, and you want to articulate yourself very loud that you're not looking for trouble. And as soon as that person gets within your reach, if you try to de-escalate the situation and told that person to stay a distance, then you have to strike before that person does. That person may initially exhibit predatory behavior, but you have to strike first, strike hard. You do not know if this person has a weapon on him or her, and you have given the verbal command. And this is what you articulate to your criminal defense attorney once he interviews you about what happened. And plus, when the police begin to collect and detectives, depending upon the circumstance, begin to collect evidence, it's going to support your case that you try to de-escalate verbally as well as non-verbally. Verbally, you articulated yourself, and then you put the shield up that you are not looking for any trouble. That means that this is a non-verbal gesture. Please, I'm not looking for any trouble. And also, that is going to be on the video recordings as well. And so that's going to work in your favor. Remain silent. Let the professionals take care of your case. And it could save you if you give that death blow, or if that person falls and hits the back of his or her head and dies, or if you critically injure that person. The video recording will show that you did everything that you could to de-escalate and to avoid violence, but this person gave you no other choice but to protect yourself, loved ones, family members, or innocent citizens. It's not about fighting. That's the mistake that some people make, especially people that's been trained in sports, martial arts. Can you imagine yourself going against a gang member that earned their currency on exploiting the citizens, that have been in prison, that have killed people on the streets? And then you're going to try to fight a person. That's why I say strike first as soon as they get within your reach, because you don't want to know how skilled this person is. Again, this person could have a knife or a gun or an improvised weapon, and that is not something that you want to know. So as soon as they get within your reach, it's called anticipatory self-defense. The person wouldn't stop and kept moving in your direction. That means that this person already attacked you in his or her mind. One of the first laws of nature is survival. Deal with that situation. Use enough force to neutralize the threat. And there are different levels of force, because this person could be insane, mentally unstable, high off recreational drugs. Your average tactics, especially if it's sports oriented, is not going to work. You have to be ruthless, and you have to strike the most vulnerable and deadly vital points when this person gets close to you, and you have to act quick. And if you have a weapon, you have to use a weapon. Whether it be an improvised weapon on you, a knife, or a gun, it's about your survival. Do not be submissive and participate in your own murder. Your family needs you. Your friends love you. Your associates care about you. You are important to your circle. Therefore, you do everything that you can to survive so that you can return to your loved ones, or you and your loved ones can go home safe and uninjured to the best of your abilities. And so this channel is going to teach you how to destroy quickly the human anatomy. And the techniques will be very simple. Anything complicated is going to get you killed in the real world. If you've got to think about it, and if it's complicated, if you have not trained to the extent that it's instinctive, and you have to think about getting in a perfect form, throwing a perfect blow, getting in a perfect stance. None of that happens in the real world. Trust me. It's about knowing the weaknesses of the human anatomy and attacking it and disabling that person as quick as you can, neutralizing the threat. And it takes different levels of force depending upon the individual. Each person is a case-by-case basis. And so the main essence that I want to talk about in this video today was your Miranda rights, connecting with a criminal defense attorney, locking that criminal defense attorney's information in your cell phone, and adhering to the Miranda rights that has been quoted to you by the police. Because if you critically injured or eliminated that person, if that person is deceased, you will be taking a ride down to the jail and be incarcerated until all the facts are sorted out. If you do all the above and you do everything that you can to keep the peace and to de-escalate, and your criminal defense attorney knows the laws, knows how to defend you, and the video footage and evidence will show your articulation and body language will show that you did everything that you could and you had no choice but to defend your safety, family members' safety, loved ones, or innocent citizens. So, this is what my video is about. As I am keeping my promise, as I promised, that is what my intent was in this video, was to talk to you about that. Check out some of the other videos, especially of those gentlemen that's been incarcerated, now rehabilitated and giving back to the community. Prison is not somewhere that you want to go, because then it really becomes an act of survival. Now, I cannot speak on that because I don't have that experience, but there are those with beautiful channels that are a wealth of knowledge. And so this is why it's important that you do everything that you can as far as self-defense is concerned, to protect yourself from human predators and to protect yourself from the judicial system, from the legal system. And the only way that you get that protection is remain silent, let the professionals handle it, and I can assure you, 99% of the cases, you're going to come out on top. Okay, so this is what I wanted to give a lecture about today, some about my background, then go into your Miranda rights, and not only how to protect yourself on this channel hand to hand, but to protect yourself from the judicial system, saying the wrong things and ended up doing life in prison when your intentions were honorable. We have an amazing judicial system. You have to know how to win within that judicial system, or else you could use the tactics that you have learned, how to kill people, how to injure people. And especially if you get in a fighting stance, that shows intent. That's why in the real world, you don't want to do it, whether you're wrong or right. You want to get in this stance right here. Always remember that. Remember to remain silent, adhering to your Miranda rights that the police officer is supposed to quote to you as he's arresting you. And then if it's not quoted to you, that's going to make that arrest void, because you were not quoted your Miranda rights. And so remember that as you travel. I wish you and your family peace, tranquility, safety, as well as prosperity. Thank you very much for coming to my channel today, and I hope that this video has been of benefit to you in some way, so as to prepare you how not only to deal with the predators, but how to deal with the judicial system, the legal system as well. Okay? Thank you for coming to my channel. Peace and many blessings be unto you, your family, and love.